What's up, everyone? Hopefully, you're maybe taking a short break from the March Madness to join Mike McClure, Jason Sobel, and I. Jason, I'm wearing the Sunday red because last time I wore the Sunday red, you and I hit Carl Billups at 70-1, and I have a Jacob Bridgman 70-1. I gave it out on the show at 60-1 that we can sweat kind of during this show, although he'll tee off as soon as we kind of get out of here. But we're going to take you through, those of us that are in here already. What's up, Joseph Boza? We're going to take you through the live betting board, maybe some matchups that are still remaining. We're going to take you through the live outrights. I mean, this leaderboard's getting really, really crowded. Some guys going really low. Mike, let me talk to you first. How is this setting up for you? I mean, this is such a crowded leaderboard.
Such a crowded leaderboard. Look, it's Justin Thomas again. Surprise, surprise. Everybody knows my computer cannot quit a little JT. So rooting that way. Would love to see Connors. If I don't get that, would love to see Bridgman for you, as Bridgman was a core DFS play that I've got with those guys. So got a little sweat going on everywhere. Still sweating Will Zalatoris, just not in the market that we want to be sweating him in. And that would be the top 40 market. So very crowded leaderboard, though. This tournament is just far from over. It's encouraging when you see a guy like Xander and some of the others -5 on the round when we're talking about leaders sitting at -7. That means we could see some fireworks this afternoon. There are 20 golfers still very much in contention here.
Jason, you're going to have to go out and get this tournament very clearly. I mean, Xander is now 6 under through 14. Lucas Glover is 3 under through his first 3 holes, so he's very much in the conversation at T4. Yes. We got Seamus Power that's 4 under. A ton of low scores. Eric Cole having a nice day, and then Thomas Dietrich, Stephen Fisk. You go down the board, though. I mean, there's plenty of guys who are having bad days. This feels like a tournament where if you're dialed in, if you're at the top of the board, you got to be dialed in, right? And maybe go 4 or 5 under.
Sia, same thing that we've seen, if not throughout the entire Florida swing, at least for the last 3 weeks. We thought the Cognizant would play tougher, and it really didn't. But volatility, this is what we want to see from golf tournaments. If you're just a golf fan, if you're not betting, if you're just watching golf, you're like, hey, I want to see a fun golf tournament. You want 2-shot swings. You want birdies available when you hit good shots. You want bogeys when you hit bad shots. It's not like you're very easily able to get up and down and still save par if you hit a bad shot into a green. And so that's what we've got for the last at least 3 weeks, from the API to the players to this week at the Valspar. And literally this thing is wide open right now. The angel on my shoulder is telling me, go with the guys that have done it before, the guys that have won, the Shane Lowrys, the Billy Horschels. The devil on my shoulder is like, man, don't you remember Joe Highsmith a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah.
That guy won before. He went 64 on the weekend and went out and got it. So it really is open to anybody right now.
Mike, this is so interesting because I'm more on like the devil side, where it's like these young guys, they just go for it. Like even when they're not fully in contention, we've seen guys like Jacob Bridgman, Joe Highsmith. Obviously Joe has won, but Ricky Castillo, like these guys have had great round 4s when they've been like a few back and not necessarily fully in contention. With that said, if you were looking at a veteran, Mike, and you were like, well, because some of these veterans, they don't, like maybe a Collin or a Fleetwood, you're like, I'm not, or even a Connors who's in contention, you're not sure they're going to go for it. But Hovland and JT are some of those, veterans. Hovland's not that old, obviously, that like you expect to go pin hunting in round 4, whether that's to their detriment ultimately or to their winning this tournament. So if you're looking at the veterans, wouldn't it be JT and Hovland that you'd be like, all right, these guys are actually going to go out and get it?
I think so. And look, I think that Victor Hovland, it's been really rough of late. So sitting up there, I think any kind of top 10 result, I know they're never happy with not winning a golf tournament, but a great finish would be good for him overall in general. But JT, this is all in on winning this golf tournament. There's no difference for Justin Thomas winning this golf tournament or finishing T40 trying, right? I think that you're definitely going to see firing at pens and being extremely aggressive out of JT. I think more so than Hovland. Some of that's obviously because of where they sit on the leaderboard as well. But I think out of all the guys there, I think JT is going to be the most aggressive out of that first page of the leaderboard.
Seamus Power now 5 under through 10. I mean, these guys are they're just going low. Like if you like Bridgman can't have the start he did yesterday, like credit to him for bouncing back like he did, but you're going to through 6-7 holes. If you're even par, you're going to be trailing in a pretty significant way. Go ahead, Jason.
See, I was just going to say, I think there's an advantage in going late and being one of the leaders. And I know that sounds like it would make sense because, hey, yeah, you'd rather be at 7 under than 4 under coming into today. That's not always the case. I've talked to a lot of players over the years who are like, nah, I'd rather be 1 or 2 back than 1 or 2 ahead. Really, no, it doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. That said, for today at least, I think that the guys who are in the lead have been able to sit back, watch what's going on, understand you can shoot a score. Unlike really the first 3 days of this golf tournament, it might be playing easier stroke average-wise than it has over the first 3 days. And so I think you can set yourself up for, hey, the target score isn't a 70. Target score might be a 67 today. And go out there and kind of change your mindset a little bit before you go out as opposed to mid-round.
Jeff Stenberg says, am I crazy for buying a Castillo ticket at plus 1,800? Because that's what I did. That's an interesting. So, I put my live bets out there, usually on Twitter and in the SportsLine Discord. One that I didn't put out there because I wasn't super focused on watching parts of the round yesterday. I did buy Castillo at 40-1. This is another guy that can just go out and get it. So we'll talk about guys who can post or just guys who are going to win in a second, but there are some questions about matchups. For example, Prasant says, I like Davis over Paul in a round matchup. Is that Davis Riley over Jeremy Paul? I'm assuming. Yeah. Okay. Let me take you guys through some of the 2 balls that are still left over at BetMGM. And these are the 2 balls without a tie. Davis Riley is plus 100 over Jeremy Paul. That's interesting that Paul's a minus 125 favorite, isn't it? Jason, you were kind of nodding your head there. Are you on Prasant's side here, taking Jeremy Paul? We still have, 15 minutes to get this one in.
Yeah, very much. I know Jeremy Paul played well, I believe, at the WM Phoenix Open. He's a good up-and-coming player. He's going to have his day at some point, but I don't think he's quite there yet. Davis Riley's a guy that's been very good over the last few weeks. We usually joke about Davis Riley having his 1 week in the sun every single year. He won the Zurich alongside Nick Hardy 2 years ago. He won in Texas last year. And so we look at Davis Riley as a guy that is boom or bust, but the ball strike has been good over the last few weeks. And I think that's probably priced wrong. Quite frankly, I would think Davis Riley would be the favorite in that matchup. And I like him at even money.
Yeah, Jeremy Paul's been showing up on leaderboards the last few weeks, but this does seem like it's probably incorrect. I will note Patrick couldn't join us today. Hopefully he'll be here next week on this show, but he has that Davis Riley long shot ticket, which I think it was 200-1 or something like that, that he gave out on the early wedge. Let's go through some of these matchups before we get back to outrights. Justin Thomas over Kevin Yu. I mean, it's minus 200. I assume we don't see value in taking Kevin Yu at plus 160 here, Mike McClure?
No. I think that the gap, the computer's going to tell you maybe a little value on it. And I think that if you don't love JT, I think it's okay because I think JT is extremely high variance today. Again, I think out of all the guys sitting there, I really expect him to be very aggressive, which can go one of 2 ways, right? So at plus 160, I don't hate grabbing that up. What I would like to do is, have multiple situations like that where I'm having multiple shots at a plus 160 rather than just one isolated value snipe against JT. But I'm certainly not laying minus 200 on JT in that matchup.
I just want to add on JT because this is a guy that I've spent a lot of time with over the last 10 years, a guy that I've gotten to know pretty well. I mean, I remember interviewing him at the end of the 2022 campaign after he won the PGA Championship that year. And I asked him, how would you rate your year? He's, I left a lot out there. I didn't play well enough. I should have won some more. And I had to stop him in the middle. I go, you realize you won a major championship this year? He's like, yeah. And Tiger always tells me when I win a major, it's a good year no matter what else happens. But, man, I left a lot out there. I can tell you right now that JT could not care less about the Valspar Championship. What he cares about is winning. It doesn't matter if it's a Valspar. It doesn't matter if it's the Byron Nelson or Colonial or Valero Texas, Shell Houston Open, whatever else is coming up. Doesn't matter what it is. He wants to get that next win under its belt. It's been 3 years now, close to 3 years. He wants something on the mantle before he goes to Augusta to prove to himself, if not everybody else, that he can still go out there and win a golf tournament. So, yes, I agree with Mike. He's playing very aggressive because second place means absolutely nothing to JT today.
Yep.
Yeah, very interesting. I mean, it does lend itself to what Mike, you were saying about the potential volatility with JT, because he's definitely going for first place, and that's it. You can make that argument with a lot of golfers. But Mike, can I go back to you on that Jeremy Paul Davis Riley thing? Did you agree that with Prasan and Jason that maybe plus 100 is the play, Davis Riley versus Jeremy Paul?
Yeah, so I'm not like super bullish on Davis Riley. I like him. I think he definitely shouldn't be catching even money. I honestly would price it at least a minus 110 on both sides is where I would price that matchup. Yeah. He has led this field tee to green. Davis Riley has this week, been good around the greens. Pretty encouraged that he's not really doing anything on the putting greens themselves. So room for some positive variance working that way. If you said I have to play the matchup, it would certainly be the Riley side of it.
All right. Josh Phelps says, can we get any odds for a player to punt or throw a club? What about odds to set off sprinklers? That Adam Hadwin clip, I mean, that was tough. Did you guys see that where he squared up on the sprinkler head by accident, I'm sure, but that just seemed like a mess for him. Jason, your response to that. Do you know Adam well? I mean, he seems like a very gregarious, fun dude.
Yeah, like Adam probably felt really bad afterwards. Like, I just slammed my club down. I didn't mean to like set the sprinklers off and have to have the ground screw. I'm trying to, like, you saw me, he's trying to fix it afterwards. A lot of guys might slam their club down, accidentally set off the sprinklers and like, whatever, someone else's problem. I got to go chip this ball over here. Adam's like, oh, sorry, mate. I got to go like fix it. And like, he felt bad about the fact that he had to go back there and try to fix that. But we've seen Sahith Theegala throwing clubs. We've seen a lot of frustration out there on the golf course this week. But like I said, I think it's probably playing easier, and we'd have to look at the stroke average right now, but it feels like it's playing easier right now than it has at any point over the first 3 days.
I'll say this, Highsmith just birdied one. It's really unfortunate for a bet I put out on Friday. Highsmith missed a 4-footer on 18 yesterday. If he had made that, he would have been 5 under. He just made a birdie on the first, so he's now 5 under. So these live odds can be really interesting. Joe Highsmith was 250 to 1 after Thursday. I put the tweet out. I put it in the SportsLine Discord. Hey, these odds are too long. He was cut to 50 the next day, and now he's probably, I'm not looking at the live odds, he's probably in the 30 to 1 range. Go ahead, Jason.
So I want to ask you and Mike this question because I feel this way. It's almost like a roulette wheel. The roulette wheel ends on, lands on 6. Okay, I'm not betting 6 to chase, even though, quite frankly, the odds are exactly the same moving forward. That said, Joe Highsmith just won a tournament 3 weeks ago. I'm not betting on Joe Highsmith because I don't think Joe Highsmith is one of those players. He's not Scotty Scheffler. He's not Rory McIlroy, Xander Schauffele. He's not one of those players I would expect to win twice in the span of a month. That said, it's a new week. It's a new tournament. It has nothing to do with anything that happened to the Cognizant. Mike, are you less likely to play a guy who's not a superstar and has won recently, or does it not matter?
Doesn't matter to me as someone who's bet Justin Thomas nearly every week here. No, it really doesn't matter to me. I get the argument. I certainly get the argument for it. I think that the answer probably depends on the strength of the field still too. The fact that you're not competing, I know that this is still a very good field and there are a lot of great golfers at the top, but just not competing at the same time. Like say if Scotty Scheffler was sitting at -4 right now and just having really elite talent in a difficult test of golf, then yes, I am more likely to just simply avoid it and not bet it. But considering the circumstances, if you like him, you like him. And it's not crazy to go win, 2 golf tournaments in a month. So,
and you're probably right. You're probably, Mike, you're probably more right than I am. I look at it from a perspective like Joe Highsmith's a nice player. I think he's going to have a nice career on the PGA Tour for the next 10 years, might win 5 times, and, I might scratch his way onto a President's Cup team at some point. Like, I think he's a nice player. There's nothing wrong with Joe Highsmith. I just have a hard time wrapping my mind around the fact that Joe Highsmith can go out there after never having sniffed a win on the PGA Tour, played well in the fall part of the series, which really is best golf until now over the past month. It was the fall last year, and never really sniffing a win until all of a sudden he wins the Cognizant, and then the floodgates open. There are no floodgates. It's really hard for me to just wrap my mind around the fact that he's going to win twice of the 4 Florida swing events. But look, again, one has nothing to do with the other. And if anything, it only strengthens his position in the fact that now he's learned how to win. He knows how to win. He's done it before. He can have that confidence moving forward.
Mike, did you have something to add there?
Yeah, I was just going to say the only time that I would be less likely to bat someone like that is just the week following the first career win, especially the more meaningful the win becomes, right? So like not all wins are created equal because not every person has the same, individual life situation, financial situation, whatever it may be. But every year on the PGA Tour, there are literally life-changing wins, right? And it's not, drastically changing quality of life, but it does change life for a number of these golfers. And some of those emotional spots, that's where I'm looking to not necessarily go back to the well right away, just because it can be very emotionally draining to win a golf tournament for the first time, right? And all the responsibilities that come with it. Again, not every tournament created equally in that front either, but that's typically where I'm looking to not go back to the well on someone, even if they are in great form.
The other thing I'll say here, and also I did have Joe Highsmith as one of my 4 pre-flop plays, but I took the 250 to 1, and I know some other people are on that as well, which, by the way, Josh is telling me it's now 33 to 1. So, I mean, he's certainly in the conversation. Let's see what happens. But Jason, in my opinion, I kind of liked him pre-flop because of the field and because I know he can close, or at least I saw evidence that he can close. Sure. But at this point, and I'm not recommending him as an outright. We're going to get to outrights we recommend in just a second. With 3 rounds under his belt, playing well, it's almost like I feel like I can throw that last tournament win out the window even more than I could have before the tournament even started, because he's clearly just playing well. And we know there's evidence of him closing. It's just such a packed leaderboard. I don't know if anybody wants to go there currently at 33 to 1, but I've got a 251 ticket to potentially cash. So do some others out there. Let's talk about outrights, though. Mike, I'm going to start with you. Are there any outrights that you're showing may have some value that people can take that are listening to this show right now?
It's always difficult when I get to this question because I do keep in mind the positions that I already have, which are Thomas and Connors. I still don't hate Corey Connors, honestly. 22 to 1. It's not terribly far off from where you were getting pre-tournament, and you're literally 2 shots back. Now, the guy that I don't have any exposure to that I think is extremely likely to still go win this golf tournament is Shane Lowry. I don't have any exposure to him. He's the kind of golfer that's just absolutely consistent, plays very well on tough tests like this. Go look at live strokes gain data. He is second in this field, only to Davis Riley in terms of tee to green. Not doing anything on the putting greens yet themselves for the weekend. So if again, considering the positions that I already have, which is JT and Connors, the guy that I want additional exposure to right now would be Shane Lowry.
And Shane Lowry currently at 9 to 1. Jason Sobel, you see this list. It's obviously headlined by Victor Hovland at plus 333, Jacob Bridgman co-leader, Nico Echeverria co-leader at plus 600, plus 700. And then we see Jeremy Paul down there at plus 3,300. We know Joe Highsmith is down there too. Corey Connors, who Mike pointed out, is plus 2,000. Any 1 or 2 golfers jump out to you here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the better players, quite honestly. I mean, when it comes down to it, it's a wide open golf tournament. We've seen guys who have won before. We've seen guys who are trying to win for the first time. And we understand that players can go out there and win for the first time because we've seen it recently. That said, I'm looking at, like Mike said, Shane Lowry. I'm looking at Corey Connors, and I'm looking at Billy Horschel. Billy Horschel's 1 under through 2 so far. He has made it, and I feel like I've said this on every podcast we've done, every early wedge over the last 4 weeks, but he's said it is a big goal of his to win in Florida on the Florida swing at some point before his career is over. Now, I get it. Look, guys can have goals, and the goals aren't met, and it doesn't mean we have to bet on them. That said, Billy has 8 career PGA Tour wins, been there, done that. He's playing some good golf, despite what he said on the broadcast last week during the Players when he admitted that he had no idea where the ball was going. Billy's playing some good golf right now, and wouldn't surprise me. I kind of like that number that he's at right now. And so I'm going to put my chips in on the players that have been there, done that, and the guys who are the better players. And, if I get beaten by a Jacob Bridgman or a Nico Echeverria, who I think is actually a really good player, or a Ricky Castillo, so be it. But I'll take my chance on the guys who have won before.
By the way, Joe Highsmith, Pretty good approach shot on 2. Looks like he has maybe 12, I'm guessing here, 12, 13 feet for birdie. If he makes this one, that Highsmith play gets pretty interesting. Speaking of the Gators, by the way, thanks for tuning into this show because we realize March Madness is going on. But Mike, you said, wonder if Billy Horschel, Gator, of course, is aware that the Gators are tied at half with you at the half with UConn. That's very interesting. Let me ask you guys, has anybody looked at top 10s or top 20s? Because Mike, you brought up Corey Connors. Yeah. And I liked Corey Connors before round 4 started to top 10. It was around, depending on like including ties, it was in that minus 110 range. Without ties, plus 115 or so. But with so many players going low right now, I almost feel like that market, I'm a little afraid of those consistent guys that I typically look for. For some, this isn't a super hard course right now. So I'm curious, would you go to a Corey Connors or would you go to somebody maybe a little bit more volatile that you expect to go low?
I like Connors in a top 10 still. The dead heat rules plus 110, plus 115 is still available. I do still like that. I like Corey Connors. I don't think he's going to blow up here and go backwards today. I think that he's looking at a top 10 or better finish here.
Okay. Jabel says these guys are destroying hole 5. There was one matchup we didn't get to, and I do feel like we need to talk about it because there are 2 of the 3 guys at the top of the leaderboard with Victor. It's Nico Echeverria, of course, and my guy, Jacob Bridgman. Bridgman's a minus 145 favorite. Jason, any thought? I know. I love your reaction there. I guess I didn't expect it to be minus 145 either, outside of the fact that Jacob Bridgman's been pretty consistent. But I don't know, on a day like this, he's got that all-around game. He's got that putter working, but I feel like Nico could go low too. What side would you be on here? The minus 145, or I think it's plus 115 on Nico?
Easily plus 115 on Nico. Nico's a really good player, guys. I think if this was a President's Cup year, we're talking about Nico Echeverria making the international team. This guy's he's shown a very high ceiling. I don't know what the floor is right now, but when he's on, he's really, really good. He's been very impressive. I think he's still underrated. I think we're still not talking enough about just how good he's been, but that ceiling is big. And as we know, guys, on the PGA Tour, like you have a high floor. If you're the Charles Howell type and you finish 21st every single week, nobody cares. Doesn't really matter. He's nice for finishing position bets, and that's about it. If you have a high ceiling and you win once or twice a year, every single year, we're going to take notice and big things are going to happen for you. And I think Nico Echeverria is that kind of player.
Mike, I want to kick something back to you. It's Larry Marcel in the chat says, Justin Thomas top 5 at plus 140. Any thoughts on that?
I think it's a fine price point. I think it's good. I really think with JT today in this position that he's in currently, I really think it's 1-2 or T20, right? Yeah. I think that's the likely outcome here. I don't hate it at that point. I'd rather look for ways to back him. And I think one way that I would consider it is trying to find just round props in general. If you're bullish on him, look at player scores, which is why I want to go back to Bridgman real quick as well. Sia, I would not lay the minus 140 in that matchup. Over on DK currently, you can play Bridgman's round score under 70.5. So that's him shooting 1 under at minus 105. I would much rather play him for a 1 under round at minus 105 than try to get in the way of Echeverria at minus 140, because there are many scenarios where he doesn't win that matchup, but does card a -1 round here.
Jason, go ahead.
See, just going to mention it because we haven't mentioned this name. And I feel like even last week, Rory McIlroy, one of the best players in the world, one of the most polarizing players in the world, we didn't even mention him that much on the show. We haven't said the name in 25 minutes. Andrew Novak, now 2 under through 2. He's at 6 under overall. Yeah. I'm watching out for Andrew Novak. I've watched this guy for the last 3 months, and like he's got some game. He feels like he belongs, and that's a weird kind of thing. Like there's not really a statistical model for that. I mean, yeah, there are stats that show that a guy's playing well, but sometimes you just see. I saw it with Aaron Rai last year. Aaron Rai was a great example that if you watched him throughout the summer, like this guy's going to win at some point. Like he belongs. He's playing really good golf, and he won, of course, the Wyndham Championship. Watching Andrew Novak, and I liken him very much to Michael Kim, and Michael Kim's been, sort of on the same parallel, but a little bit higher than Novak. But I watched Novak, and I'm like, this dude belongs. He knows he belongs. He knows he's playing some good golf. He's got a lot of confidence. he's obviously going out there trying to make a lot of birdies. And he's made 2 of them so far. Watch out for Novak.
So this is actually probably a good transition point. For those of you that watch this show, and thanks for being in here, by the way. Dub, he is in here. Capper Taylor is in here. Of course, Jeff Stenberg, Brad Merrill, Prasant, Ernesto, Thomas is in here as well. Sorry if I didn't say your name, but there's a lot going on in this course. So here's what we're going to do, because you brought up Andrew Novak, who, by the way, is tied with Bud Cauley, who I absolutely love as well, and who I've been betting as well. As Lowry's eagle putt comes up a little short, looks like he's going to birdie the first, although he's still got about 6 feet to go, it looks like. Let's talk about players that are going to be, we're going to take a break, and then we're going to talk about players that are going to be in the Houston Open next week, because Novak and Cauley are 2 guys that are going to be at the Houston Open next week that I like. Let's just touch on that. That's what we like to do on this show. We talk live, then we talk about the next week's tournament. We just kind of touch on how we preview it, some of the players that we're looking for before odds even come out. And then once we're done with that, we're going to circle back to what's going on the course to see if there's anything live or otherwise that we need to consider from a finishing position standpoint, a live outright standpoint, anything along those lines. So we're going to take a break, and we're going to cover the Houston Open real quick, and then we're going to circle back to what's going on at the Valspar Championship. We're going to do it right after this message from our partners.
12 teams, one epic battleground, and it's the most feared of them all, San Francisco. This city is legendary for high winds, brutal tides, and an eerie, unforgiving race course. It's all or nothing.
This April, CBS Sports brings you more of the Masters than ever before. 14 hours of live coverage from Augusta National on Saturday and Sunday, beginning each day at noon Eastern on Paramount Plus and continuing at 2 on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus. We look now to the Houston Open. Let's just get out a couple of notes on maybe some players that we like, preview things that we're looking for. It's the beginning of the Texas swing. Mike McClure and Jason Sobel, last year's champ, Stephen Yaker outdueling guys like Scotty Scheffler and many others. We've got some notables here. Wyndham Clark, Jason Day, Tony Finau, Ricky Fowler, Sungjae Im, Sahith Theegala, and oh yeah, Scotty Scheffler and Rory McIlroy are playing here. But there's a lot of some of those, quote, lesser names, at least lesser names for now, that I'm very interested in this tournament in some regard. Jason, I'm going to start with you. When you size up this Houston Open, what are the types of things you look for, or the types of golfers you look for?
Driver-heavy golf course. The top 27 on the board last year were all positive strokes gained off the tee, and so I'm looking for guys that can smash it pretty straight off the tee. And essentially, this is, let's try to avoid Scotty and Rory, who are obviously getting in a tune-up before Augusta National 2 weeks later. Look, they can go out and accidentally win a golf tournament and ruin our cards, but I can't imagine that too many of us are going to be on either one of those guys at a regular season event 2 weeks before the biggest major championship of the year. They're just trying to get their games in shape, but guys, I'm looking at starting near the top. I'll be very interested in Sahith Theegala's number. It's starting to come around for him a little bit. If I can get a 45, 50 to 1 number, Mike, I think that Sahith's a guy that I could get after. And after that, I'm looking at guys that Jake Knapp interests me a little bit. Taylor Pendrith maybe a little bit. Davis Thompson I'll certainly be on this coming week. And then looking at long shots, maybe a guy like Isaiah Salinda is on my list as well. Yeah. Taylor Moore, maybe. I don't know. It's basically just trying to avoid Scotty and Rory and move on from there.
I love some of those names you mentioned. I literally have a collection of like 12 or 13 names that I love. And what's funny is, and I took a glance at the field, right? The names Jason mentioned, I also love, but they weren't on my list because I just kind of like scanned it and I didn't see Taylor Pendrith and Isaiah Salinda, who I love. I agree. From an off the tee standpoint, at Memorial Park, that's going to be really important. It does look like short game is really important here. And I do want to mention, and Jason, you can confirm this for me too, I'm sure, but like this tournament used to be later on in the year. Last year, they moved it up to late March. I do think that makes a difference when you're looking at course history. Jason, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah. Also, when you're going back and diving deep, and I'm trying to look it up right now because this hasn't always been at Memorial Park. This was at some awful TPC course I remember going 2 years ago. Let's see. We've been at Memorial Park. I'm trying to do the whole Wikipedia search here. Since 2020, I believe.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, it used to be TBC Houston or something like that. It was a terrible golf course. So don't go too far back in your research and studying, and basically look at the last 3-4 years. But yeah, the different time of year might play a little bit differently on the golf course. Quite frankly, I haven't quite gotten there yet with all my research and studying. But yeah, from what we've seen, driver heavy more than anything else.
Yeah, Mike, it does feel like driver heavy and short game are definitely going to come into play here. Guys that I thought were really interesting, I'll just kind of like, by the way, Jacob Bridgman plays in this one. I think Bridgman is going to be good in a lot of places. Castillo is in this one. I think he's going to be really good. Patrick Fishburne, Highsmith is in this one as well. Sam Stevens, my guy, Danny Walker. And the guy that I think I'm going to bet right away, Mike, is Thomas Dietrich. He had a good tournament last year. He was very good tee to green along with so many others. But yeah, Thomas Dietrich, Bud Cauley, names like that are the names I'm interested. How about you, Mike?
Yeah, I like a few guys here. Some that you guys mentioned, some that you haven't. Just going to run down a list of guys that I've got some interest in backing, and I'll say a little caveat on Corey Connors, kind of pending the result here. But to me, it does project as another decent spot for Corey Connors. And again, you're going to catch a great number still, mostly because of the strength of the field at the top. I agree that we're not betting Rory, we're not betting Scotty. Truly a tune-up there, but because of their overall skill set and talent, they're still going to have price points that are reflecting that, right? So I think you're going to get good numbers on guys like Connors. The other guys that I haven't played a lot recently that I will have some interest in here, Jason mentioned Theegala. I like Theegala a little bit. I like Tony Finau a little bit here. Pendrith also rates well. Davis Thompson, who we mentioned, rates well. And then let's see, yeah, that's mostly it. And I'm going to be kind of living in that range. So it'll be Theegala, Finau, Connors, Pendrith, maybe Davis Thompson, depending on the number.
I'll be very interested, Mike, in Davis Thompson's number because he's a guy that I really liked coming into this year. Quite frankly, other than the first event at Torrey Pines, the Farmers Insurance Open, he really is underwhelmed throughout, but he was 21st at this event last year. And I think he's a kid that's going to win. I think he's a kid that's going to push to be on the Ryder Cup team, quite frankly, 5-6 months from now. And I think he's really good. He's a little robotic. People aren't going to love him. He's not much of an interview. He's not much of a talker. He doesn't do much except play really good golf and hit it long and straight. But I think Davis Thompson's really good. And oh, by the way, Prasant in the chat saying, don't knock the TPC course. I'm going to go with Jeff, who says, 98% of them aren't great. We saw a great one last week. That's about it. I'll give River Highlands some love too, but that's about it.
Mike, at Memorial Park, are you also on the, I don't want to say bomb and gouge necessarily, but you're looking for like driving distance off the tee? Is that kind of a primary factor for you here?
Yeah, definitely. I will say I think that's a huge reason that we're going to get a little bit of Tony Finau popping a bit, and Theegala here. And Pendrith for sure, just some of that off the tee stuff. So yeah, definitely have to have good drives. Prefer them to be as long as possible, but definitely just good drives overall. Very important.
And the beauty is rough doesn't appear to be, or it hasn't been super penal here. So you can be wayward like some of these guys can be and still potentially be in good position. I'm going to look at that off the tee in particular, driving distance a little bit. I'm going to look at weighted tee to green. Probably look a little bit at putting because that's really come into play here. It comes into play for all the winners for obvious reasons, but the short game in general, I'm going to look at more here than I have in previous tournaments. I think that might cover just our quick preview of the Houston Open. By the way, it's a par 70. It's a long course. This is a par 70, 7,400 yard course. So that's part of the reason this off the tee play, driving distance is certainly going to come into play. Jason, any closing thoughts on, at least for now, on Memorial Park?
No, not really. Look, this is one where, we're a lot of us are loading up for the Masters. We're getting ready for those, but this is one where we can find a winner. I'm thinking that Scotty and Rory are just using it as a tune-up. Look, Scotty used it as a tune-up last year and finished in second place. So one more 5-footer goes in on the last hole and he beats Jaeger in a playoff and ruins everybody's cards. But I do think it's a place where essentially with those guys being such short numbers, we can get a decent number on some other guys a little bit further down the board. Like Mike mentioned, Finau was second last year. He's played some really good golf on this golf course. Theegala, Pendrith, all guys that normally in a regular season field without a great competitive field around them might not have great numbers, but Rory and Scotty are just going to push everybody further down the board, and I think there's some value there.
Mike, closing thought here, because anytime people hear Rory and Scotty, especially me, I say, I sure can't wait for that without Rory and Scotty market to come out. So I want you to catalog this in two ways in terms of answering the following question. One is, where's the math? Should we not be betting that market? And two is the math so bad that for those that are recreational bettors to some degree and just want to eliminate Rory and Scotty, should they still not be doing it, or should they even consider it, in this particular case?
Yeah, the math on it is definitely bad. Now I would not, I can't fault anyone there. If you really casually betting, I think it's fine to exclude them and bet that market. I would say this is definitely the wrong event to do it, because I believe that they are using it as a tune-up like Jason does. And I think that they're very unlikely to care about winning it unless they just get absolutely hot. Like there's certainly a scenario here where Rory comes out and he's like essentially first round leader. And he's like, okay, fine, I'm going to go win this golf tournament. Like that definitely can happen. But I would be very interested in not betting the without markets this week, this next week coming up, because I do think that they are using it as a tune-up and are very unlikely still to win that tournament.
Jason, can I ask you one follow-up on that? Because you've been so close to these guys in so many different situations, and particularly, these situations where a Rory or a Scotty or a Xander in this tournament, in the Valspar's case, where they're just trying to work some kinks out and things of that nature. Do you notice when they're on the range, or their practice round, or when they're just kind of, walking around, do you notice a different demeanor when guys like that are, quote, tuning up versus when they're like attacking the Masters, for example?
No. And in fact, this is sort of this old wives' tale that guys the week or 2 weeks before Augusta National are hitting shots in tournament competition that are shots they would hit at Augusta National. I think Phil used to say that, and Phil got people on like the whole idea that he was doing something at Houston that he was going to use at Augusta National. That's not the case. I mean, look, once Scotty gets on the golf course, if the shot requires a cut from 150 yards and he's trying to get one into a back right pin, he's going to hit that shot. He's not going to say, well, at Augusta, I draw this in, so I'm going to hit a draw here instead. That's not what they're doing. They've got 2 more weeks to prepare for the year's first major championship, and I don't think they're too worried about that. That said, look, for Scotty, for Rory to go out and win the Houston Open, it just doesn't mean a whole lot. And quite frankly, I don't want to put my money on a guy who's playing for something that doesn't mean a whole lot to him. And so I'd rather wait. I don't know if either of those guys are going to be on my card for the Masters yet or not, but I'd rather wait for them at a tournament that means more to them, that they're trying to win, than one where we know what they're doing. We know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. Why are we putting our money on a guy that's just trying to warm up for the year's first major?
Yeah, totally fair. All right. We got much more coming on this tournament, the Houston Open at Memorial Park. Tomorrow during the DFS show at 7, Tuesday at 7 o'clock during the betting show, the live chat at 10:30. We have 5 shows per week, everybody. So make sure you turn your notifications on for this SportsLine YouTube channel. But tomorrow at 7, Tuesday at 7, you'll see Mike, you'll see Jason, you'll see myself, among many others. That'll be our coverage for now for the Houston Open. Let's circle back though, because a lot is happening on this course. We still got stuff to discuss here as Xander misses a putt, which I think was for birdie on 17. Not 100% sure. I do know Jeremy Paul eagled the first hole, so he actually has a share of the lead now too. And as he's -2 right now, we've got Bud Cauley still at -3 at 6 under here. Xander probably out of contention. He's got 1 hole to play. JT, good tee shot, as you pointed out, Mike McClure. Mike, anything jumping out at you? We were talking Houston Open for 10, 15 minutes. What's going on the course?
That if you're going to win this tournament today, you've got a good look at eagle on 1. This part 5, there's many eagle opportunities. I think JT could have one here. We'll see what the second shot ultimately ends up bringing. But I loved it because JT, that was one of the best tee shots. I know it's not a difficult tee shot by any stretch, but it looked straight, looked good. JT's locked in. He's going to go win this tournament. I'm feeling it. We'll see. I think he's going to have a look at Eagle again. Maybe I haven't seen the second shot yet. Maybe it hasn't happened yet. I like JT today. I think he gets it done.
Jason, any thoughts over the last 15 minutes? Anything changed for you? I'm watching Justin Thomas. It looks like he's sizing up his approach shot right now on the first. But anything jumping out to you? This leaderboard is this is gonna be a crazy leaderboard. I mean, it just is. And I think if you wanted to make a live bet, you could do it now. You could do it 20 minutes from now. You could do it 2 hours from now, because there's going to be so many different people at the top that I think there's going to be room to take a guy at 14-1 or 12-1 or 18-1. That's maybe just a shot back because it's such a crowded leaderboard.
This first hole being a par 5 reminds me of Riv. And I know we didn't play at Riv this year because of the wildfires out in LA, but essentially, if you're making eagle, you're picking up a shot on the field. If you're making birdie, you're only keeping pace with the field. And so everyone like, wow, he's 1 under through 1. Watch out for so-and-so. It's like, well, yeah, you're supposed to be 1 under. It's a par 5. It's not playing that difficult. So if you're even through 1, you're essentially going backwards. And, I think there's definitely some live maneuvering. I would even wait. I mean, I don't mind waiting until we get to the meat of the contenders, getting to about the back 9 and sitting there and trying to find the guy who's 3 back going into the back 9. And if you got a hunch on him, I don't mind playing them at like some kind of 15-1, 20-1 type of number. I think a lot of weird stuff is going to happen. And so, again, like Mike said throughout the show, it depends on your positions. If you're sitting there with JT pre-tournament and you've got a lot of JT and you just want to ride with him, you can ride with him. If you want to hedge it a little bit, you pick up some other guys. If you're like, look, all my guys are out. I had Luke Clanton before the tournament. He was my biggest position, and I'm looking at, okay, where else can I pick something up? And I'm kind of sprinkling a little bit on a few different guys when the number is right. But, it's going to be a wild afternoon.
This is, I mean, every second. Let us know who you are rooting for in the chat or who your live bet is on, because let's see, Glover just made bogey. That's not good for him. Cauley looks like he might have just saved par. Oh, no, he's got a birdie. There's 5 people at -7 now. Justin Thomas is in the bunker. Kevin Yu in the bunker, but that doesn't mean they're not going to birdie this hole. They just got to get up and down. Mike, from a live betting standpoint, there's a lot of different moments in this tournament where you can live bet it, correct?
Yes, a lot of different moments. Where's Bridge?
Lowry birdie, by the way. So he's in a share as well. He's 2 under through 2. I mean, this is crazy.
Yeah, I think that it's I think there's some value in some of the round scores, honestly. Now on this is a FanDuel price point, but Bridgman again, 70.5 under is +105. A -1 round at +105. Honestly, I think that it's for him to stay top 5. I think he needs to be at 9. I think there's going to be some scoring here the rest of the way.
100%.
I like under 70.5 +105 on Bridgman's round score.
I mean, guys, if you go down the leaderboard, there's not anyone in the top 20 who's over par today. You have to get to 23rd, where it's Grillo, Ben On, who should have been higher, Corey Connors, who we talked about earlier and has gone the wrong way over the last 20 minutes. But nobody's up there who's over par for the day. This is not a hang on and see what you can do like we saw over the first 3 rounds. This is, you've got to change your mindset and you've got to go low. And again, I give a little more credence to the guys who have the experience and know how to change. This isn't just experience in winning. This is experience in knowing how, like a JT, a Lowry, a Billy Horschel, guys who have been there, done that, understand sort of the flow and the rhythm and the tempo of a golf tournament. And hey, it was really hard for 3 days, and now it's not quite as hard. My target number should be 66, 67 and not 70 anymore. And I think that might be a little bit more difficult for a Jeremy Paul or a Jacob Bridgman who hasn't been there, done that.
Yeah. Interesting to note, Bud Cauley, another birdie. So he's got a share as well. I don't know if I can't remember if I was on a show with either of you two when I said this, but when the lines come out, most of the time Monday morning, I'll bet a couple of guys. Yeah, so Jason's nodding his head. I'll bet a couple of guys right off the bat. And so I thought I bet Jacob Bridgman and Danny Walker at like insane numbers, 140-1 on Danny Walker, who by the way missed the cut, and Jacob Bridgman, who was 70-1. And then his odds fluctuated because of the alleged weather wave. He ended up being 60-1 on the early wedge show that we put out. But I went back to look, And I realized that I had actually accidentally put that money on Bud Cauley, who was also 70-1. I like Bud Cauley, but because he wasn't somebody I was rushing out to bet like Jacob Bridgman. So now I have a bet on, and I didn't put the Bud Cauley bet out, by the way, because it truly was an accident. And it turns out he was on the bad side of the weather wave too. Again, the alleged weather wave. So now I have a bet on Jacob Bridgman, and I have the same exact bet at 70-1 on Bud Cauley. This would be the happiest accident of all time, Jason.
Sia, I'm rooting for Bud Cauley just for you.
Yes.
And if Bud Cauley wins today, I want you going on social media and going, I told you guys, Bud Cauley, here's my winning ticket. Told you guys on Monday, big win for me. Got to follow Sia Nejad. I'm getting winners for you.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah, I mean, that's why I want, and shout out to the Early Wedge show. Some of you are in here and you watch the Early Wedge, but I don't know how to say this without sounding like super arrogant about it. So I'm just going to try my best. Jason, Mike, we've been red hot, like with our outrights, with our matchup bets. For the record, I think I'm going to win all my bets from the Early Wedge this week. There's a couple pending that look like they're going to win. I'm almost positive I'm going to win every single bet, and that's including the 3 matchups I put out on the Early Edge. So it's going to be a clean sweep, and if we can somehow get Jacob Bridgman across the finish line or Highsmith, that would be just a crazy. But it's not just about me. I mean, Jason, you're hitting outrights. Patrick's hitting. I'm just talking about the betting show, Mike. But like Patrick's hitting. He's at what 2-3 outrights already. We've only been doing this for 4 weeks. Yeah. I mean, the show has been just completely on point. So again, I just, for those of you that are listening to this and you just don't have time to catch the Early Wedge, the 7:00 shows on Monday and Tuesday, or the live chat on Wednesday, strongly encourage you to figure out a way to incorporate that into your, whether it's listening to the podcast or watching the live show, definitely watch that show. All right. We do have to get everybody out of here. I got to be honest. I could watch, because I've got like the live, I'm like updated now because I like brought in an extra TV. Before I was on like a 7-second delay. I could do this for the next 3 hours, but we can't do that. So how about some closing thoughts? Let's see, because Castillo has swag, says Jables. True. Jason, closing thoughts on what you're expecting over the next few hours.
So first of all, props to you on the Castillo pronunciation. Everyone's going to look at it. I'm sure we have probably some people watching right now going, that's Castillo. I know guys named Castillo, and they pronounce it Castillo. Ricky calls it Castillo, and we're going to call it Castillo. So props to you on that. Secondly, I'm going to write an article on this tomorrow, but I love the fact that we've just seen volatility over the last 3 weeks. We didn't really get it at PGA National in the first week of the Florida swing, but the last 3 weeks, you hit good shots, you can make a birdie. Hit bad shots, you can make a bogey. Good scores are out there. Bad scores are lurking if you're not completely on your game, and this is what we love to see in PGA Tour golf. People all the time say, I want to see these guys suffer. The fact of the matter is, you don't want to see them suffer. You want to see them challenged. That's what we've seen over the last 3 weeks. I think it's been fantastic. Yeah, Jeremy Paul, Mike, leaves a putt short for birdie. Justin Thomas did get up and down for the birdie, so he's just one back heading to the second hole. Xander finishing out his round. Looks like he is he's out of the rough here, kind of an awkward stance, awkward shot, and he looks like he's in position to par, and his tournament is likely going to finish at 5 under. Mike, any closing thoughts as we approach like a very listen, I get the March Madness thing. I got to tell you, I love March Madness. I've been so squarely focused on golf, partly because it's just a profitable sport for me, but I don't care that Scotty and Rory are not in this tournament. This is super exciting to me. I love watching this. And as much as I want to catch the end of UConn, Florida, and I will change it to UConn, Florida and watch the end of it, and I'll watch some of these other games, 60% of my attention, if not more, is going to be on this Valspar Championship for whatever that's worth. Mike, closing thoughts.
The level of my attention on the Valspar will depend on what Justin Thomas does on this next hole. I think number 2 here is the most important hole for him. He bogeyed this hole yesterday. He has not birdied it all week. It's not a particularly easy hole. If he finds a way to birdie this, I'll be glued to the TV, locked in, because he will be tied for the lead and will have birdied consecutive holes. If he bogeys this, I think things could go a little south. So very intently watching this hole for JT. And then I'll be following everything. Admittedly, have a lot of March Madness going on, but love, I have literally 4 computers on this desk. I got a big projector in front of me. I've got everything going on, but it's probably other way for me, probably 60% March Madness, 40% golf, but that can change very quickly based on this hole.
All right. I want to put this out there. Thomas Dietrich is going to win next week at Houston. That's my call. Jason, you say no. Tell me more.
He's already won. Same thing I was saying before. Like, if you're not Scotty, Rory, one of the best players, you just don't win twice that quickly.
Here's the thing, though. He played well at the Valspar. Granted, his round is over. He's not going to finish. He's probably not even going to finish it inside the top 25. But this was not a course for him. Next week is a course for him. And I don't know. Thomas Dietrich is one of those guys that can go out and just get a tournament.
Davis Thompson week.
Yeah, that's fair too. Mike, you want to make a call on a Sunday afternoon? Maybe like a middle of the road, middle of the odds board type player?
Well, he's closer to the top for sure, but I'll say it's Tony Finau gets it done.
Okay. Tony Finau, Davis Thompson, Thomas Dietrich. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for our live show. You can join us every single Sunday at 1 o'clock. Thanks for hitting the like button if you did that. If you didn't, that's okay. Hit it next time. Make sure you're subscribed to the SportsLine YouTube channel. Again, we do the early edge every Monday through Friday at 10 o'clock in the morning. We set you up for your entire betting slate for that given day. But we also have all our early wedge content on the early edge. So you're going to want to catch that. Also, so many like special MLB shows and NBA shows and NFL, you name it. This SportsLine channel has it. And of course, join sportsline.com if you can. If you go to sportsline.com/join and you type in the promo code winners, you get your subscription. You get 60% off your subscription at SportsLine. So that's something to consider as well. But thanks for joining us. Buckle up for an exciting Sunday, both with March Madness and the Valspar Championship. We'll see you tomorrow at 7 o'clock for the Houston Open, the Texas Swing. Very excited for that. Just a couple of weeks away from the Masters. On behalf, Jason Sobel, Mike McClure, of course, Josh on the 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s as Victor hits out of the rough. I can't get enough of this, folks. I got to say goodbye. Let's see where this lands in the fairway. All right. He's going to be it's birdie at best, obviously, for hole number 1 for Victor Hovland. We'll see where Bridgman is. That's going to do it for us on the early wedge. We'll see you next time, folks.